What if your ADHD isn't really ADHD? What if constant notifications, chaos, and the way we live in 2025 have rewired your brain to act like it does? Or what if certain patterns like parenting, habits, or the environment played a bigger role than you think? And with a few key changes, you could actually reverse the symptoms. I was diagnosed with ADHD 8 years ago, and it changed my life. But since then, I've met people who thought they had it only to see their symptoms almost disappear when they made a few key changes. Right now, searches for ADHD are up 270% since 2019. It's all over TikTok, in ads, even in your group chats. Everyone's talking about ADHD.
ADHD.
But is this really an epidemic of brains gone wrong, or of environments that are impossible to focus in? Experts like Dr. Gabor Maté say trauma and your environment are the real cause.
Well, you know it can't be a genetic problem because genes don't change in a population over 5 years or 10 years.
Others, like Dr. Russell Barkley, one of the most renowned experts on ADHD, say it's in your DNA from birth.
Maté is wrong. He is worse than wrong.
And then there's Dr. Edward Hallowell, practically the godfather of ADHD, who told me that
So modern life itself creates the symptoms we see in ADHD. The way you tell the two apart.
in this video, I'm talking to some of the biggest ADHD experts in the world. And I'll give you a way to see exactly where you fall on the ADHD spectrum. By the end of this video, you'll know the chances of your symptoms being genetic, environmental, or both, and what you can do about it. By the way, I'm Nick. I make videos that cut through the ADHD myths and give you tools that actually work for your brain. If you want to understand yourself better and finally get consistent with the goals you have in life, hit subscribe. It's free and it helps me keep making videos like this one. Let's start with the obvious. ADHD is having a moment. In the US, adult ADHD diagnosis rates have more than doubled over the past decade. In the UK, they've tripled since 2007. And at the same time, we're also seeing more and more people self-diagnosing, sometimes based on a 30-second TikTok. So what's really going on? Are we finally correcting decades of underdiagnosis? Or are we medicalizing normal reactions to a world that is absolutely wrecking our attention spans? To even start answering that, we have to be clear on what ADHD actually is and what it isn't. ADHD is weird. It's not just about focus or attention. It's about lying awake at 2 a.m. because your brain won't shut up. It's losing your keys, forgetting the milk, getting stuck in all or nothing mode. It's anxiety, rejection sensitivity, restlessness, financial chaos, and that's just Monday. And then there are 3 subtypes: inattentive, hyperactive impulsive, and combined. Most women fall into the inattentive type, which explains why so many slip under the radar for years. It's the type I have, and let me tell you, it's a wild ride. But here's the kicker. All of these subtypes also exist on a spectrum. And this is where one of the biggest thinking errors happens. Most people think ADHD is black and white. You either have it or you don't. But in reality, it's more like a dimmer switch than an on-off button. Imagine a scale from 1 to 10. At a 5, you might still forget your keys, get lost in thought, or procrastinate. But you can manage fine without medication as long as your environment supports you. At a 7, you might start feeling like you're constantly swimming upstream, and you might need the right tools, structure, or coaching to keep your life together. And at a 10, the symptoms can be so intense that medication and professional support and other ADHD-tailored methods aren't just helpful, they're life-changing. This is why 2 people can have an ADHD diagnosis but live completely different lives. One might thrive with just a few adjustments, while the other struggles to hold down a job without medication and or daily support. How would you rate your ADHD symptoms on a scale of 1 to 10? Drop your number down below. Let's see what kind of average we get. Before we move on, quick share. I'm hosting a free live event where I'll reveal my #1 method to beat procrastination and unlock instant focus without apps, planners, or meds, so you can finally hit your goals. Spots are super limited, so click the link in the description and save your seat now. The trouble is, when we talk about ADHD like it's an on-off switch, we miss the nuance. And that's where the whole genetics versus environment debate gets messy. Let's start with genetics. Dr. Russell Barkley, one of the world's leading ADHD researchers, points to decades of twin studies showing ADHD is highly heritable. If you have it, there's a good chance one of your parents does too. That's actually a quick test. If you suspect you have ADHD, look at your parents' patterns. If your ADHD is genetic, this means it's part of how your brain is wired, and it's not just going to go away, like it could if your environment gave it to you. The most effective solutions here tend to be things like medication, structured programs, therapy, and coaching. And I've made a ton of videos breaking down those strategies. But here's where it gets interesting. About 15% of kids do seem to grow out of their ADHD. What's going on there? Could ADHD not be genetic? Well, Dr. Russell Barkley explains this by showing that symptoms can change as you age. In childhood, hyperactivity and impulsivity are usually the loudest. But in adulthood, they can morph into restlessness, focus issues, emotional regulation struggles, and executive dysfunction. Things like time blindness or avoiding tasks. Basically, these issues become a lot more internal. Some people learn to accommodate. They choose careers that match their dopamine profile, use external structure, learn emotional regulation skills, and build self-esteem, all of which can make ADHD symptoms way more manageable. He also points out that your brain keeps maturing into your late 20s, especially the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning, focus, and self-control. This growth can turn the volume down on some symptoms without removing ADHD entirely. But here's where it gets really interesting. Sometimes it was never ADHD to begin with. Trauma, anxiety, or burnout can mimic ADHD symptoms. In these cases, the ADHD label fades away when the root problem is treated, which is where the other camp comes in. The one that says ADHD symptoms are shaped by your environment, by what's happened or is happening to you. I talked to Dr. Hallowell, one of the original voices who helped the world understand ADHD. Here's what he said.
So modern life itself creates the symptoms we see in ADHD. The way you tell the two apart, by the way, ADHD from modern life, do what I call the Vermont tests. So take someone who you think might have ADHD, put them on a farm in Vermont, and come back in 2 weeks. If they're sitting on the porch in a rocking chair reading a book, then it was modern life. It wasn't true ADD. If they turned the farm into an amusement park, then it was true ADD. So the point is, one is very much more biologically based, and the other is much more environmentally based.
I love that. I'm going to have to remember that. I think I'll definitely make a video on that.
Now, if you're thinking, well, I don't have a farm in Vermont to escape to, I feel like I've had ADHD forever, hold on. Because there is one person who believes ADHD is still reversible, even if it's been there your whole life. That's right. And he's not some fringe voice. He's Dr. Gabor Maté, physician and best-selling author of Scattered Minds. Someone who's been on the world's top podcasts, who millions of people learn from and look up to. Maté argues that ADHD isn't just about faulty brain chemistry or bad genes. It's often a developmental response to early emotional stress. In other words, trauma. If you grow up in a chaotic, high-pressure, or unpredictable environment, your caregivers might be physically present, but emotionally checked out, anxious, depressed, or simply unavailable. This is when you, as a kid, adapt. You suppress your real needs to stay connected. You learn to be who they need you to be, not who you really are. And that creates a split between your inner world and how you show up. You don't feel safe. You don't feel seen. You learn to tune out, shut down, act out, whatever it takes to survive. Sound familiar? For a lot of ADHDers, this isn't just theory, it's their story. And let me tell you, when I dug into the similarities between ADHD and trauma, they were striking. Distractibility, restlessness, trouble sleeping, memory issues, task avoidance, you name it. In both cases, the brain can stay on high alert long after danger has passed, flooding the body with stress hormones and physically reshaping neural pathways. Just like you would think ADHD does it. Could we all just be traumatized to the max? But wait, what about that parent test? That if you have ADHD, your parents are likely to have it as well. Surely that's conclusive evidence for the genetic component. Well, not quite. You see, Dr. Maté argues that trauma can be cross-generational too. If a parent hasn't resolved their trauma, they can pass on both the emotional patterns and the brain chemistry to their children, which is why it can look like ADHD runs in the family, even if it's environmental. In Dr. Maté's view, even if you have a genetic predisposition, the condition is activated and possibly fully reversible through environmental change and emotional healing. Maté believes that when you address the root through therapy, emotional attunement, lifestyle changes, and reducing stress, ADHD symptoms can shrink or even disappear. Your genes might make you more sensitive, more prone to certain struggles, but they don't write your destiny. That's the hopeful part. You're not powerless. It's not your fault, and you can change how your story unfolds. But no matter how compelling his case is, not everyone agrees. Dr. Russell Barkley, who lost his own brother with ADHD in a car accident and has dedicated his life to understanding it, has been one of Maté's most vocal critics. In fact, in one video, he even said that
Maté is wrong. He is worse than wrong.
Dr. Barkley argues that ADHD is one of the most heritable psychiatric conditions we know of, not because of trauma, but because of differences in genetics. He believes Maté underplays these strong genetic and neurological foundations, instead attributing ADHD to emotional misattunement and early stress without sufficient empirical evidence. Also pointing out that Gabor Maté is merely a family physician with not enough standing in the scientific community to make these claims. And indeed, when looking into it, there is almost no empirical evidence proving Dr. Maté's point. The evidence is clearly on the side of genetics and Dr. Barkley. But how can this be? How can so many ADHDers relate to that story of emotional, unavailable parents, learning to be who they need you to be, not who you really are? Well, here's where it gets really, really interesting. Dr. Barkley's research shows that kids with ADHD do experience more adverse childhood events. But here's the twist. Those events aren't the cause of ADHD. It's actually the other way around. Let's take a closer look. Imagine you're a parent with ADHD. You're going to be likely to zone out, be hyper-focused elsewhere, or be emotionally reactive, which can lead to your child feeling unseen, unheard, or unsafe to express its own emotions. Rules, routines, or emotional responses also change day to day based on the ADHD parent's mood, focus, or overwhelm, which can create an unpredictable environment for your child, fueling anxiety and hypervigilance. And as an ADHD parent, you may obviously struggle to keep up with daily parenting demands, leading to burnout, which can make your child feel like their needs are a burden or are too much for the parent to handle, impacting self-worth. Can you see how this works? The research shows that having ADHD traits increases the chances you'll encounter adverse childhood events in the first place, meaning ADHD traits raise the risk of trauma exposure. And we see this elsewhere all the time. ADHD very often isn't a standalone challenge. It can set the stage for other challenges, trauma, anxiety, depression, substance use, because its symptoms increase the likelihood of stressful or harmful experiences. This is what the research proves. It also proves that ADHD is genetic, which is why one of the most important questions in any ADHD test will be if these symptoms came up in more than one environment, and if you've had them since early childhood. But if it's so obvious, why are Dr. Maté's views so widespread? Well, probably because he offers hope. In comparison to scientists and doctors telling you that you will have ADHD for the rest of your life and that you'll need to take pills for it so you can function in society, he suggests that you can actually reverse the effects naturally. However, according to experts like Dr. Russell Barkley, this is a dangerous narrative to spread. His warning is that the trauma narrative can easily slide into a culture of victimhood, the idea that it's always someone else's fault. From there, it's a short jump to dangerous claims like you can cure ADHD by healing your trauma. And that opens the door for fake gurus and coaches who promise to heal your ADHD by digging for trauma, whether it's really there or not. So what do you think? Who's right? Maté offers hope and agency. Even with vulnerabilities, your environment and relationships shape how ADHD develops and how much it impacts you. Dr. Barkley offers the hard science. ADHD is in most cases written into your genes. And while you can manage it, you can't erase it. Both come from two different paradigms. Maté with the therapeutic developmental lens, and Dr. Barkley with the neuroscientific clinical lens. What do you think? Let me know down below. Since we follow the science on this channel, I am strongly tending towards Dr. Barkley. I think that ADHD definitely does come first, and that trauma builds on top, which is why so many of us can relate to that perspective. But then, what about the massive growth in diagnoses? Are they all real? And should they be taken seriously? The truth is, the ADHD diagnosis boom is messy. Yes, some people are being labeled too quickly, but for most, millions that is, it's the first time their struggles are finally being recognized. Like with any trend, there will be excesses, but if you ask me, the real story here is that awareness is helping countless people get the right diagnosis and transform their lives. Ensuring accuracy is the responsibility of the doctors, not the patients seeking help. But if ADHD really is genetic, does that mean there's really nothing you can do about it? Not even close. Think about the people we talked about in the beginning of this video. The ones with diagnosed ADHD who erased the worst symptoms from their lives. They didn't magically cure ADHD. They made strategic accommodations that play to their strengths and protect them from their weak spots. And you can do the same. If you have or think you have ADHD, you can probably relate to the constant internal battle, the feeling of always being behind, overwhelmed, and never being able to finish what you started. I know because I've been there. I used to drown in procrastination, executive paralysis, and shame, never getting close to my dreams. I was sick of hearing, "You have so much potential," while feeling powerless to actually realize it. Until I learned about a secret science-backed process that now allows me to instantly focus and execute every single hour of the day to finally get consistent results. This method is the main reason why I was able to quit my 9-to-5 and travel the world full time while building a profitable and meaningful business that now lets me work on my own terms. That's why I'm hosting a free online event where I'll walk you through the exact system I use to get consistent, stay focused, and finally feel in control of my life. And I'll show you exactly how you can apply it to your own life as well. It's not about willpower, and it's definitely not about shaming yourself into working more. I've tested this method with thousands of people over the past few years, and I can confidently say it's the most effective approach I've ever seen. It works for almost everyone, whether you have a formal ADHD diagnosis or just recognize the symptoms in yourself. Click the link in the description to save your spot. And let's make ADHD work for and not against you. See you there.